Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. And today we have a special treat for you as we talk to director Shaka of Judas and the Black Messiah and his amazing sound team responsible for all of the bells and whistles and things that you heard watching that movie. We are happy to have this conversation as a part of the Mills Valley Film Festival Contenders Series. And we're going to kick things off right away. So guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, brother. So, I mean, let's talk about sound. I mean, a lot of people, I think, really need to be educated about the importance of sound. I think for most people, they assume that you just simply put a mic in the room and there you go, there you have it. But talk about why sound is important in cinema.
Skip, you should start with that one.
I thought, let's let it go from the head down, Shaka.
Okay, well,
yeah, oh yeah, that's even better.
I'll put it to you like this. If you watch a movie that looks bad and sounds good, you can sit through the whole movie. If you watch a movie that looks good but sounds bad, eventually you'll probably turn the movie off. You'll definitely turn the sound off completely and just watch the movie and maybe listen to something else or listen to nothing, you know? So sound is, even though we're talking about motion picture, I think in a lot of ways, sound is even more important than the imagery.
Skip?
I think sound is a crucial method of a sleight of hand. And the movie thing really is a sleight of hand because we have to try to get the audience to stop looking at this and actually go inside and forget about the edits and different shots. And the more seamless that is, and the more convincing and realistic it is, or the more all together one piece, the easier it is for the audience to stay involved, to stay in touch with the performances, and go on the journey.
And just to piggyback on that, I feel like, you know, it's sort of where the rubber hits the road too, in terms of it feeling like a movie. Like I always feel like one of my favorite things about doing my job is, you know, the director and the editor have been sitting in these small dark rooms for so long, and I think by the time they hit us, they're a little bit like, you know, they're just in a certain mindset. And I feel like once we put stuff up in a dub stage, you know, I just get really excited because the directors usually get jazzed. They're like, oh man, like this is starting to feel like a movie, you know? So that's one of my favorite things about what we do, because it does in some sort of perverse way make it feel real, even though most of what we're doing is kind of fake, you know? So.
You can call me, yeah, you can call me a super sound nerd or whatever, you know, my wife may refer to, but I think sound actually makes the picture. Sound actually draws the picture. And if you learn to hear and learn to listen, or even more importantly, you can feel that you're capturing what a person should see without seeing it. If you have the mics in the right place, I can't really explain it, but I get this chills. I've said it before, and I just get this feeling over me, and it's like a feeling of like excitement, like a roller coaster, like you're going down a hill, you know? And that's when I realized that I'm capturing the sound the right way. So it's almost like the sound is drawing the picture for me. And I think when you have that feeling or you can see it, then you know you're there. You know what I mean? So because a lot of times I can mix a scene without even seeing an image, just seeing an image. I just know I can hear it. And I think if I can paint the picture with sound, then I got it.
How did the three of you become connected with the project?
Well, Marlowe, you can start since you're kind of the...
Well, I'm on the outside of the cool club, but hopefully now I got a membership card, you know, but I was coming through the back door, you know, but I initially got a call. I was just in the middle of another feature, Liam Neeson feature in New Mexico, and I got a call, and it was such an honor. And that was from Austin, who was a UPM on the show, and he just had heard a lot about me and said, I think you'd be a really good fit with this director, and you know, you have the right vibe and energy. You're always upbeat, and heard you're really good at sound and mics, and I think this is that kind of show. So, you know, I'd like to send you the script. And we went on from there, and I got it, and I just like, I lost it. And when I read it to my mom, I had to read it to my mom twice, you know, who has lived that era, and she knows a lot about Fred Hampton, and, you know, and she just started tearing up. And she was like, you have to do this movie. And I was like, I guess I have to do this movie, you know? So that was like how I got, you know, drawn into the show. So I'm not as cool as Rich, you know, who has, you know, direct link, but it's still, it was awesome and pleasure.
Now, what about the two of you? When did you get on board?
It was funny because I met Shaka in probably 2015, Shaka, or 2014 at Sunday.
I think 15.
2015. And I met Shaka and Chris, the picture editor, and we hit it up. We kind of had these like two New York crews that were out there for separate things, and we all just like amalgamated and had a lot of fun. And we kept in touch a little bit afterwards in Brooklyn and stuff, and hung out a bit. And then it just kind of came across Warner Brothers New York desk, and the producer here said, hey, I got this Shaka King job. And I was like, whoa, like that's definitely exciting. And I actually thought it was going to be, you know, I knew Shaka more from what he had done in the past, which is kind of more on the comedy tip. And so I was thinking it might be those lines. And then I learned more about the project, and I read the script, and I was like, wow, this is a big thing. And I got really excited. I actually emailed Shaka just saying, hey man, like whatever I can do to jump on board, I'd love to be a part of it. So I was very excited to reconnect with Shaka and work on this movie.
Skip?
And Rich brought me in, and I was on the hook from the very beginning. I was in whatever, anything like a movie like this about that's real, and it is like a New York movie. It's like an NYU, Martin Scorsese, Spike Lee, Joel Cohen. It's got all that stuff, and I love all those guys, and I'll do anything for that type of movie. And of course, Shaka is fantastic as well. He belongs with that group actually. Welcome to that group.
Thanks.
Now, Shaka, what were you looking for when you needed to assemble your all-important sound team?
I mean, I looked at obviously everybody's credits, and that obviously told me that I was talking with, you know, great technicians and just professionals, you know. But then beyond that, it was just, you know, an instinct in terms of vibe, you know, and how do we relate to one another, and, you know, what that initial conversation was. And it was very easy. You know, like Marlowe and I spoke on the phone. I remember I was in an Uber, and you know, we spoke, and it was just, you know, he told me about just the way that he connected to the script and his family connection, and I was like, well, yeah, this is the guy, you know. And then Rich, obviously, we'd hung out at Sundance, and you know, his temperament, I knew him, so I knew he was in. And then, you know, when he brought Skip on board, and, you know, and I saw all the Skip had, you know, literally worked on some of my favorite movies of all time, many of my favorite movies of all time. It was just like, are you kidding me? That's a no-brainer, you know.
So now, guys, what type of prep time did you have? I mean, Marlowe, I know it's your hometown, so
right.
Did you have the opportunity to visit some of the locations in advance? Because, of course, you know, filming a movie like this, you have to know where you're filming and know whether 21st century sounds are going to enter into the mix, and just really know the time and place for the shoot. So were you allowed the opportunity to do a pre-visit and get adjusted to your surroundings?
You know, actually, sadly enough, I wasn't able to do the scouts, so I sent my utility guy for it because I was still in New Mexico when they were doing the scouts. But a utility guide have been will be enough to understand what we need and what we're looking for and what's around those environments and what elements are we going to hear. Are we near, you know, fire stations, stuff like that. Stuff I know we cannot hear for a period movie of 1968 or, you know, early 70s, you know. So I already kind of had an understanding of that. And I'm from Cleveland. So I knew these locations, and amazing enough, the locations were shot literally right in my neighborhood where I grew up. So, you know, that was a tearjerker alone for me, because I realized that Fred Hampton was one of the inspirations in my neighborhood or my hood that had made us have free meals when we were kids. Unbeknownst, I didn't know that, you know, and free meals and the mentorship and all the programs for us in the hood, you know, that stuff was steamed off from Fred Hampton. So for me to work on it in my own hood, which I knew the locations, I was just like, oh my gosh, we used to play right there in that field. You know, like we used to ride our bikes right through, you know. So for me, I knew all of it anyway, you know, and that really helped me in just being prepared and figuring out how we're going to get this and like what mics and like what older mics, you know. So I was really, really, really super excited about that. I don't think Shaka ever knew that like the first day we shot was 2 blocks from my house. So, you know, I was almost in tears at my cart. You know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this really happening to me right now? You know, so there's a lot of like ironical, you know, irony here for me and the whole show. So, but that was one of the keys. So,
I mean, so guys, talk about the challenges. I mean, 2 of the most pivotal scenes, I mean, certainly took place in the church and also, you know, during the shootout. Talk about how you prepped for those, as well as executed.
All right, well, I guess, okay. So for me, for the church, I realized in my mind, I was thinking after like talking to my mom and then talking to my wife about in church, I said, you know, I want this to feel like when I was a kid and I went to church with my mom and, you know, people were up and just the energy and how the pastor would say stuff and the congregation would answer. And it just would be really organic. And it wouldn't be something that you'd have to, okay, this piece, now we have to put that piece, now we're gonna layer it and we're gonna, let's just kind of just go for it as a concert would be like live. And I just felt that would give Daniel playing Fred Hampton the right energy, the vibe. And I just put a lot of prayer on it. And thank goodness for Shaka allowing me to go forward with the idea, because I remember running up to him and just was like, can we do this whole thing? And can we just let it just go and just let the crowd just start cheering? And when he comes up the stairs, let him cheer and just let the crowd just let him just go in, you know? And he just looked at me, he was like, okay, you know, which I'm not saying that my past directors, they don't agree, but that was just really amazing that he was like, sure, you know? And of course we had a little reluctancy from the first AD, you know, because that's her job. And a lot of people ask me when I post this on Facebook, you know, like some of the interviews we've done, did you talk to like Rich or Skip? Some people I know Skip. They said, did you talk to Skip about doing it like that? Because, you know, it was a big risk. I said, actually, no. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because if Skip would have said, well, Marlowe, well, that would have changed how I wanted to approach it. So this way I went with my own heart and soul and gut feeling on it. And then we mic'd it accordingly to what I felt and how I remember as a kid in the church. And it just worked. Thank goodness. Knock on wood. So yeah.
Skip and Rich, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the big challenge for me, it's from a sound effect side, which is sort of my side of the desk. It was a scene that I kind of didn't think about too much because, you know, there were bigger fish to fry with a lot of the other scenes and like set pieces and shootouts and stuff. But the one thing that was gnawing at me throughout the whole process, which I knew was, you know, our hands were tied because of COVID. So I knew that it was a big rally scene and we couldn't really put people together up until the very last minute. And, you know, there was talk of like having Shaka get some friends together, like doing it in his backyard and this and that. And we lucked out in the end because we got like just a really solid loop group squad, which is the people that come in after the fact and kind of, you know, do the post-production voices and stuff. and Skip was kind of like asking me about this scene, and you know, I knew from his resume that like he had done movies like Malcolm X, and I knew that there was this bar to be set. So it was just sort of something that was kind of hanging over me, and I was worried about it. But so much of it was kind of on Marlowe and Skip's side, because there's so much great stuff that was shot on set, and I just sort of peppered in a lot of the kind of specifics that were, you know, that were more in the middle ground of the scene. And I think it was just one of those magic moments where by the time, you know, Skip and I had done our premixes separately, and to his credit, he, you know, Skip came into it with fresh eyes. I had been sitting with the film for so long, and he just instinctually knew how important the scene was for the movie. So we spent a lot of time on that scene, because I think, you know, Skip realized like how gravitational that scene was for the film, and how much, you know, it kind of pulled everything together. So we definitely did a lot on our own and then together to make that scene just feel as real and immersive as possible.
Well, it's like the opposite of a very big scene like that in Malcolm X, where it was all done separately. And we had, there were a lot of people in the room, but they were sort of hushed. And there were reactions, but there were quiet reactions. And so then later we did a recording session with 350 extras in a recording studio in Midtown. And we played on 150 sets of headsets. They were at tables, and they sat together, and it was kind of like two people with headsets, and everyone kind of watched them, and they watched the movie, and they could sort of hear what was happening through the headsets, and they reacted as an audience only. So that was an entire day. I have no idea how much money we spent that day, but it was really hard work. It had a great outcome, but when I saw the movie for the first time, I think like, well, we did that once before, and it was really hard. And hopefully Marlowe will have done some special super secret stew here, which is true. He just did a great job, and the stuff was beautiful. It played so realistically. I mean, it was real. So, Marlowe, hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
And it enabled Daniel to feed, like you said, feed off of the crowd energy, you know, which I think was a major reason why he gave the performance he did.
Yeah.
He gave a hell of a performance. So
yeah, he actually said that to Shaka and I. He just said, you know, if this is anything like how an artist feels live in a concert, you know, that kind of energy. He said, I just lost it, you know, until he added stuff that wasn't even part of, you know, right, you know, like that's when you watch that, he just went off. And in the end, he just like, I remember when it was us three talking, he just like, I just never, as an actor, ever felt that kind of energy come back to me in response. And I mean, because he ended up losing his voice, you know, because that's how into it he got, you know, which was awesome. And then I had to come up with another trick, you know, so we could still complete the scene where he didn't have to exhaust his voice anymore, you know, because we knew we had other rally scenes for him to do. You know, and he was pretty much, you know, out of steam with his voice, but yeah, it was still an amazing job. And I'm so congrats to him on the Golden Globe too.
Yeah.
You know, it's well deserved.
a lot about making a film is about achieving the right on-set chemistry. Shaka, how did you go about working to achieve the right camera sound balance, you know, between the various departments within your crew?
It's not really, there isn't really much effort placed there, you know. It's everyone kind of shows up prepared to you know, kind of run their department, and they know, I mean, I hope that I create an atmosphere where they know that, you know, they can come to me with anything and should come to me with any questions or concerns. But you know, I think if you cast correctly, crew-wise, you can kind of let these folks kind of do their jobs fairly autonomously.
So I guess, sorry, Marlowe.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just saying that that's what he did too. you know, unbeknownst to, you know, our conversation prior to him in the Uber, you know, which was a great vibe. That is exactly how he was on set, you know. I mean, and we had a large cast. I mean, we would be doing, you know, 8, 7, 8, 9 wires every day, which is a lot of wiring, you know, and sometimes for the large scenes, 12 people, you know, 13. So I still could come up to him and say, do we need to wire the 13th person, you know? And he'd be like, yeah or no. And it's just amazing that he could process all that stuff while everything's going on, you know? And we had Fred Hampton Jr. on set.
Yeah, and from my understanding, in some of the scenes you were dealing with 24 or 50, 100 different channels. I mean, how did you go about, you know, sort of condensing all of that in such a way for post-production so that it was just crystal clear and ready for the post team to handle?
Oh, that's me. Well, a lot of prayer and knocking on wood. But I have to give a little bit of credit to just my setup and what I have. Like, I'm a Zascom Diva guy with the Diva mixer, and it's such a clean and reliable recorder. And Electro is my choice of wire. So that's also a clean source, and just the array of mics I have. But I think what I try to do is make sure that all that stuff initially is as clean as we can get it. No EQing, maybe a little roll off, you know, 100 cycles or whatever I feel I need, but something really like that. And then like the electro packs are set at the right roll off in them just for clothing muscle or body movement. And then just kind of babysit the levels somewhat. Daniel was a little bit harder because, like, I had a conversation with Rich. He's very dynamic. So he would whisper, and that stuff would be, and if I adjusted for the loud stuff, the level would be really tiny. So I was always writing two things when Daniel was talking, but, you know, luckily that Rich was able to work with that, and that worked. But I think the key was to try to watch all my levels and then stay on top of how clean each source was individually. And then Shaka was just kind of shocked because I was actually balancing and doing all that stuff live on set. And he was like, I just can't believe you're doing all that, you know, and we laughed for a second. But that to me was the hardest, was babysitting all of it and listening to the ISOs in one ear. So even if an actor wasn't talking, I would put all of the wires in one ear, and then I would put the mix in the other side. So the mix would be what I'm just pushing up that's going to his contact feed. And then I could still hear if a wire fell off an actor or something like that in the ear, which takes a little while to get used to because sometimes the actors would be talking off set before they walked in. But that at least assured me that the isolated tracks going to Rich and Skip would be still clean. And if not, we could catch it and correct it, so.
And Skip, I mean, obviously with 2 Oscar nominations and, you know, films like No Country for Old Men, you're a master at how to pick up the most delicate sounds. Talk about what went into making sure that you guys got everything right.
Well, we go back to the sources, so we have all the isolated tracks, so we can dig as far as deeply as we can. What happens a lot of times on the mix track is you have many open microphones, which has the lines, but it also has the noise associated. So we go as far back to the source as we can manage, so we can get clean as possible a reading. And our goal for the stage is to have a boom sound, so a more lively sound, and to have the wire for every line. And there are times when we dig back far enough and it's still too noisy, and we ask for some ADR, but we always do that as a backup to the production. We always try to provide production on the stage, no matter what it sounds like. So there won't be that question, what did the production sound like? And let's compare, and, you know, can we use part of it, let's say, and just use ADR for another part? Almost everyone prefers to use the production performance because it's so hard to get that back. Because the actors are not in the same head, and there's usually a space of time, several months. So it's really very challenging. It's really, really challenging for actors to do that process. And it's kind of horrifying if you ask me. I go to a lot of the sessions because it's so important. I feel like if there's anything I do to make it easier or go better, I got to be there for that, for the filmmakers. But on this movie, we had a lot of great track.
Yeah.
we didn't use that much ADR. We didn't need that much, and a lot of the ADR was dumped. And we used noisy or not as clear production, but it still sounded better. So we just went with it, more realistic.
I mean, so from the music choices to, you know, other elements that you needed to incorporate into sound, I mean, talk about how you overcame some of the challenges to really make sure that the sound kept in sync, you know, with the time period that the film is set in.
Well, you know, on the music side of things, you know, we were bolstered by the decision to incorporate so much jazz from the era that I feel like, even though it wasn't recognizable, you know, that and some of the soul cuts that you hear in bars, et cetera, I feel like even though all those songs aren't necessarily recognizable, they sounded right and they really matched the picture and the feel of the everything, so that, you know, they felt in some ways even more like, one of the reasons you don't hear any kind of like Motown really in the movie is that I feel like a lot of times when you're watching a period film and Motown or like a popular song of the era comes on, you start listening to the song, or you start thinking about, well, you've heard that before, or other movies that have played it, or, you know, it's just versus hearing a song that just feels like something you would have heard in this small bar in Chicago on that day, you know, a song that they might have been listening to that was just maybe a regional hit. And so it just feels a little bit more specific. And, you know, I think along those same lines, you know, when you know, Rich and Skip were picking sounds to, you know, go into the film, you know, car sounds and, you know, not just them, but their team, they were always thinking very specifically in terms of, you know, is this sound appropriate for the era? Does this car sound how cars sounded then? And, you know, when you get everyone on the team making those specific choices, you know, you start to build a world.
Yeah, and you know, it was funny because music was sort of such a style guide for me. Like, I don't even think Shaka and I even spotted the film, like, in the conventional sense. Like, I came on so early that we didn't really need to do that because we were sort of building it together. But I'm very kind of attuned to the music side of things. So it really, it almost served as a spotting session for me. Like, the film came to me with a lot of that period music already in place, and it kind of just set a tone for me, and it gave me kind of a direction, just in terms of, like, I knew that the film has like an elegance to it in terms of just that time frame, and it's always exciting to deal with kind of vintage cars and period guns and stuff, but it was more of like a visceral feeling that I wanted to kind of tap into, and the music just did sort of set that tone for me. And I think Shaka he's so into music that it really makes our job so much easier, because I think he just instinctually knows how the pieces fit together. And there are scenes in the movie where in other people's hands, it would have just kind of become like this cacophonous mess, like the shootout, for instance, like when they go at the Panthers office. Like, Shaka, I think, knows just in his bones how to kind of build stuff like that. So instead of putting these big thumping orchestral things together, he's putting like just a pulse and a ticking kind of percussion track, which allows us to really work around that and kind of like, you know, I kind of cut rhythmically anyway. So it just sort of builds into this one thing rather than this competing thing that we have to kind of like compromise certain parts of the soundtrack. It all sort of becomes a piece. And that's really where Skip's expertise is just phenomenal, because he can kind of like, you know, to me is such a filmmaker. He's not just like a technician and a sound guy. So I think he knows how to make things feel correct, you know. So I can let you run.
Okay, I'll take that. I'm not sure where to go, but I can tell you one thing. I worked on a lot of movies like, so let's say Goodfellas, where there's a lot of talking and it's super crucial story stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of music. And a lot of times what we did in that movie and Do the Right Thing, not so much Do the Right Thing, but other movies like New York movies, we kind of get the story going, we get the music going, and the sound effects and the atmospheres are pulled back to let the other stuff play. And the sound effects track sort of becomes like car buys or a gunshot or something, like door slam at the end of the scene or something. And it got to be almost like sort of a New York Stories kind of mini ballet version of, you know, the drama, because it's so much about the performance and the information. And secondarily, it's so much about the music that all the soundtrack, the rest of the track was pulled back in deference to that. And I've been very sensitive about that over the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years, about trying to not let the natural sound completely disappear and try to make all of the sound stay within an environment. And Shaka, I know, likes to hear that. He hears it that way, so he encouraged us. But I think it's kind of a slightly updated version of the classic taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, where, you know, everything just kind of recedes when that music comes up. And it's no longer fashionable, thank goodness, and we have a more realistic soundtrack now.
Now, because of COVID, a portion of the audience is going to experience this without the Dolby sound. So they're going to miss out on certain things. I mean, as sound guys, I mean, how does that make you feel that they're going to miss out on a few different things, you know, that you put a great deal of time and effort in?
It hurts.
You know what? A lot of people have nice TVs and sound bars. So a lot of the mixes that we've done in the last really 5 years have been heading in that direction already. Netflix is certainly a good example of where the industry seems to be headed. And that drives Atmos TVs and sound bars and better sounding standalone televisions. And it doesn't do anything for laptops and iPhones, but
I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall while we were working on it, in terms of like, I kind of, at a certain point, I sort of knew that it may not get a theatrical release, at least as the kind of predominant release. So, and to a degree, a lot of the time I spent cutting it, I was at home on headphones. So that is essentially, you know, a very accurate representation of how most people would hear it, either on headphones or in home theater environments. So I knew that it sort of checked out in that environment. And I also knew that it was important to make what we call the near field mix sound, you know, optimum. And to the point where usually the director is around for the theatrical mixes, and then they sort of go away and we do our versions, as we call them, without. But Shaka knew how important it was to have that version of the movie sound very good. So he sat through that entire playback and you know, made sure it checked out to his ears. And so we were very cognizant of it, and we knew that it needed it to play well like that. So it wasn't something that we were in denial about. It was very kind of top of mind.
And what is another thing that's top of mind? Shaka, were you going to say something?
No.
Another thing that's top of mind is that this film is across all categories, is very much a part of award season this year. Are you guys ready for the Carousel Ride? I know, Rich, you've been on it. I mean, Skip, I'm sorry, you've been on it several times, but Marlowe, Shaka, you know, Rich, how do you guys feel that you may be picking up that, you know, in contention for that GOAT statue?
I take things as they come, you know, and really focus on the things I can control. So,
I mean, Shaka is fully on the Carousel Ride right now. I can't imagine how many Zooms he's been I'm very happy for him. I think he deserves all the praise he's getting. This is a great film.
You know, but even for sound, I mean, there's chatter that this film is one of the films to watch in that department, in that category, which is a testament to your hard work.
Well, but it's also a testament to what a great movie it is. And really, it's easy to get carried along with a really good picture like this. And it's rare that sound nominations and wins go to movies that aren't good. It's hand in hand. And having been there a few times and been in the Academy for a long time, the idea is that everyone is looking for their favorite film and people that they can hang on to, like Daniel, and great stories. And if it sounds great, even better. But I have to defer to Shaka and the story and the performances. This really is being recognized because of that. And if the sound gets pulled in to that fantastic ride, it's going to be because of the movie and the performances.
But the sound obviously helps all that stuff in a major way. So you know, it all supports the work. Everything supports each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're all very proud of it. So if other people recognize that, then awesome. But I'm happy. I'm happy to be a part of this film, and I'm proud of it as a film first. But I feel like the sound is lives up to the story.
Well, Skip. Sorry, Marlowe.
No, I just want to add just really quick that I'm just really happy and just feel really honored to be a part of that and even be here with all you guys today, you know. And if it wasn't for, you know, Shaka, and I had a chance to actually go this past weekend and went to like a Cinemark version, but it's called Bowtie Cinema down here in Richmond, VA. And you only allowed 10 people. So I had the first AD from AMC, which I'm currently on his Walking Dead show. She went and like some of the PAs. So, you know, and two of the PAs are in the sound. They're young, you know, brothers, and they really want to get in sound. So we had that. We had the camera first. They see, you know, so everyone was watching this. And then when it was done, this is my first time seeing it in the theater. Right? So I told those guys, I said, I'm going to see this in the theater. And to hear all the wonderful stuff that like Rich did with all the gun stuff and all that magic in the cars, you know, and then to hear how Skip put the stuff in Atmos and the crowd in the church, and you hear stuff. I mean, it just was, I was literally like in tears, and everyone around me was like crying and like emotional. I mean, and I was able to then see like when I would see Shaka walk back up to Daniel and he whispers something in his ear, and this might be like take number 4 or 5. And, you know, and I'm going like, how could the take be better? But now when I see it, I just be like, how does Shaka have that magical vibe? Like, how did he know? Like, if I just go say this, you know, and then we do that, it'll change this whole scene. Like, you know, I don't want to give away, but we were doing push-ups on set. And push-ups turned into something that, you know, Fred Hampton told, you know, Bill O'Neill, that was his punishment in the room, because I know Shaka didn't see us all the time, but that's what we were doing. So it was myself, Brian Kugler, DIT, we would all do push-ups during the day, you know, and that turned into the film. And it's just like, wow, you know, just the magic of stuff to see it. And I just have to say kudos to Shaka, man. It's just wonderful, man. And to see it on the screen and to hear it like that, it's just a big treat, man. It really was. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlowe.
Well, Skip, Rich, Marlowe, and Shaka, on behalf of the Mill Valley Film Festival Contender Series, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gil. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gil.
Have a good night. See you next time.
See you at Oscars. Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.